One of my clients was 75 and finally putting her life together in a way where she could move out of her children's house and live on her own, which is what she always wanted.
What other messages, whether direct messages or indirect messages, you know, did you receive from your parents that you feel have contributed to you getting your act together?
It was funny. My dad was an employee of his brother's company. And rather than
Mm.
looking at my dad as someone to emulate and, get a good education, get a job, which he didn't have a good education, but he did have a job, I instead looked to my uncle who was employing my dad and said, that's what I want. I want to own a business. And in my thinking, and I realized this later on, maybe in my 30s or 40s, that I didn't want to have a job. The one job that I did have, well, I had a job after college. I taught school for a year. And then I started doing things that had me be self employed. I got another job in my 30s as the director of pensions for an insurance company. And that lasted all of 3 months until they merged with another company. And I no longer had a job. And I went back to being self employed. And what I realized is I would rather be self employed and rely on getting clients and having the income from several people than the insecurity of a job where, like your mom was always afraid she was going to get fired. And what I realized is if I have, let's say, 10 clients, 100 clients, doesn't make any difference. And one of them doesn't like me or dies or moves away or just decides not to hire me anymore or work with me anymore, I've lost a percentage of my income. But if I have a job and they merge with another company or I get fired or whatever the situation might occur, I lose 100% of my income, but I still have 100% of my bills. I'd rather lose a percentage of my income and have most of my bills covered than to lose a job and lose 100% of my income. So the bottom line is I recognize I'm too insecure to be an employee.
That is an amazing way of putting it. I think you're a master at mental aikido. Kind of reframing things from an old way that the general public was taught to think about things into a new way that serves you better. Because you're absolutely right. Having a job is the risky proposition, considering that someone can just come in and flip the switch, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to having so you're basically trading a boss to many bosses, right? You can have as many clients as you want or as many as you can handle, I guess. And what's really cool is that these bosses, they're replaceable. Even if clients leave you. I actually had it happen to me where an employee of mine decided to start a competing business and went ahead and stole half my high paying clients that were paying me about $500 a month. And yeah, that hurt, that sucked, but I've brought back my income to the same level within about 8 weeks. So kind of showing that they're replaceable, right? It's replenishable. So I think that's what I think the biggest issue is that most people who think that they need to most people who are afraid to go and become self-employed, I think they're just afraid of the risk, right? They have it framed as the risky thing. And I absolutely love your framing on this, where the job is being framed as the risky thing. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
Do you think that somebody in their, say, 30s or 40s is capable of being mentally flexible to take on this new point of view?
Yes. And even a little bit later, as an example, my son worked for Wells Fargo Bank for well over a decade. He's a chartered financial analyst. He managed their investment portfolios in the trust department, and he was paid very well, but he didn't like being there. He didn't like what the things Wells Fargo was doing. Um, there were things in a division of Wells Fargo Bank that were not right, and they got in trouble for it, and they got bad press. He was in a different division. It had nothing to do with that, but still people would label him as being with Wells Fargo Bank, and what a bad place, bad business it was. And he wanted out. And he finally, at around age 48, decided he was going to open up his own shop, which is what he did. So, he's now 51, so it was about 3 years ago. But the point being, that was late in life. Just like I started over at age 50, he, in essence, started his entrepreneurial journey at age 48.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So it's really never too late. Most of the people that I've worked with are self-employed. They have some level of control over their income, whether they have a business or, it's just them. And one of my close friends got divorced at 65, I think it was, and ended up $250,000 less than zero. He had a negative net worth, but we've coached each other. And so out of my coaching, he's now has a net worth of a couple $1 million instead. And he's owned multiple pieces of real estate for the first time in his life. And he has the level of security that he never had before. And that started at age 65. So one of the things sometimes people ask me and say, well, I'm 50, 55, 60. It's too late for me. No, it's never too late. One of my clients was 75 and finally putting her life together in a way where she could move out of her children's house and live on her own, which is what she always wanted.